What is up, everybody? Escape211 here, and as you can see, we're starting with just the face cam today because I got to tell you, I got a lot of things I want to cover, all right? Because we have had this anniversary, there are things that I have been, like, behind on, so I'm trying to do all of it together, and I want to start with the face cam because I have three different things I really want to cover. The first is Mech Arena sent me some stuff, kind of like an unboxing. You might have seen some of the other content creators post about their box stuff that they got, so I wanted to share that with you. Then I wanted to talk about the dev talk that they did. Not the dev vlog, the dev talk, which was really cool. And then I just wanted to share some of my other thoughts related to like some of the changes in the game, the good and the bad, right? Some of the things about the implant discounts suck. Some of the things related to like the gear hub is pretty cool, all right? But first of all, I wanted to show, for just a sense of fun, this thing that they sent me. They sent me another box. They did this once before when it was close to global launch where they sent me some cool stuff. And this is some other neat stuff that they sent me, all right? Very neat. They didn't have to do this, but they do this kind of stuff, and I really appreciate it. So first of all, with it, they had this little card of Arachnos that just kind of says they appreciate, you know, what we've done for different content creators. And hey, I appreciate them sending me stuff, but mostly I appreciate you guys for being the community that you are so that we can all connect and interact with you. That is huge. So big shout out to all of you for all that you get involved with, all you do on Discord and game, all that kind of stuff, to be able to make this community what it is, right? You're definitely a huge part of that. But they said we wanted to put together this little merch package for you so that you can stay comfy and warm while you do what you do best, which I guess is make videos. I don't know. Anyway, but I'll start with the little stuff first. So they sent a little pin. This is a little, I can't easily show it just because it's so small. If I get in close, it's going to get like, I don't have one of those cameras that like changes, but I'm trying to put it close to where my face is. It's a little kill shot pin, and it's just like a regular pin. If you look at the back, it just has a regular pin on the back. But what's cool about this is the wheel on the bottom actually spins. Not like, you know, crazy spin, but if you like turn it and stuff like that, it spins a little bit. So pretty neat, very, very fun little thing there. I appreciate that it's kind of interactive. They also had this, which at first when I saw this, I thought this was like a magnet type of thing. And then when I opened up and looked at it, it actually has a adhesive backing on it. This is like one of those things you want to put, you know, on the back of your phone, right? So you'd put it like on the back of it and be able to hold your phone this way between your fingers. I like these kind of things, but I will say that lately I have been more involved with or using the magnet on the back of my phone case more than something like this. I think maybe, you know, next time I do a phone upgrade, I may use this though. So that would be really fun to try out. Now, the next thing is probably my favorite out of the package here is this little Juggernaut mug. This is so cool. I appreciate the love for Juggernaut because I miss this guy. I hope you do a Juggernaut 2.0, who's awesome. But this is a really fun mug. I also like how it has a little full tank in the inside of it. Very fun little thing there, and then it just has their logo on the back. So love that one. Along with this, they had a little coaster that it goes onto, which is actually like a beacon point. It's kind of like see-through here. It's hard to see without the glare, but it just has the little Mech Arena logo here, and then the word point, like you're capturing a beacon point on it. Fun little thing there. But probably the showstopper or the big one here is this one. This is a Faye neck pillow. Look at that. Oh my gosh, it looks so weird on my face. This is probably gonna make a meme right here. I didn't even realize that as I did it, but whatever. Yeah, so if I just want to chill, relax in bed, if I've had a stressful day of Mech Arena and making videos, I can get my little Faye neck pillow and just chill. So I appreciate that. It was very fun. Definitely appreciate when they send stuff like that, so thank you guys. But I do want to go into, I'm kind of going to do this like a reaction video, I would say, here, because the dev talk had tons of stuff in it. Now, if you haven't seen the dev talk, you know, I will link it below, but it's a long video. It's about an hour, so I'm obviously not going to play the whole video, but I do want to play a few different clips of different things that they highlighted that I wanted to just touch on. I really love the idea of this dev talk. First of all, this is different than the other stuff where they kind of talk about different things like how the community feels, how they feel about certain things personally, as well as like some development things they're doing down the road. Now, I'm sure all of this is early in their phases, so just like the dev vlogs, these are not like anything set in stone when they get into development stuff, but really interesting to discuss. But first, they talked about free-for-all mode, because a lot of us are kind of frustrated that free-for-all is just tournament mode, all right? It would be really cool if it was in other modes, if we could do customs of it. So they ask, like, you know, Freya is actually sitting with them, and she asked these developers in the talk, like, why not in other modes? So this was their response to that.
Yeah, there is a reason. We want, you know, the big problem of having a lot of game modes in the game is that you separate the players. They just, you know, play everything, and it's often harm our PvP matchmaking, and that's why we keep it to free-for-all, so players will, you know, more often meet other players in it, because
we don't divide the player base between different modes, and it's easier to match players versus players.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I understand that. I can get that. And putting it as a tournament mode means that for sure people will play it that way. But the problem right now is that free-for-all in my mind is hyper-competitive because it's connected to tournament. And because of that, people, especially in this mode, have been doing a lot more like exploiting and that kind of stuff. And it's just not, I feel like it takes the fun away from it. So I understand why you wouldn't put it in all game modes. I would at least say it should be heavily considered that you guys just put it in custom modes. Obviously, this wouldn't solve everything for everybody's feeling on free-for-all, but at least putting it in custom modes allow people to really enjoy it the way they want, as well as being able to practice that mode against bots so that they can prepare for a tournament. I feel like that's the very baseline that they should do. If they did that, I'd be fine with the way free-for-all is. That's just my personal take on it, but you know, I understand why they don't want to just have everything separated out. So yeah, the next thing they talk about actually here was just a cute little mention of us as content creators. I gotta say, I was honored that they mentioned me in this talk. I thought it was really cool that they gave a shout out to India and Ruffles, both of you guys. But this one I thought was really cool and something I've always appreciated about a different content creator. So I wanted to just play this clip real quick here.
Cool video, cool content creator channel. He mostly do, you know, some gameplay footage videos, but it's not the best part of it, but the previews of the videos with robots with hands. You remember this guy?
Yeah. Thumbnails. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
That's super funny.
Mobile YouTubing forever.
If you are watching this, you should, you know, have some tag in Google Drive with just this preview, so everybody could take it for, you know, background for their laptop, or even like we have here the previews on the wall. Just amazing.
Yeah, I love, like, that was the first thing I noticed about his channel, Mobile YouTube. If you guys haven't seen it, his thumbnails, he does hand-drawn thumbnails of the mechs with like cool like superhero poses and like extra muscly arms. Super creative. I don't know how much he does of all that now. I know that was like his signature thing for a while, but I don't know if he does it all the time because I'm sure it's very time consuming. But dude, I really think you should make like some merch with this or something, like in some way, because like the way your artistry does for those thumbnails is super cool. So if you guys haven't seen his channel, again, I'll put that one in a link below as well. You should definitely check his channel out because those effects are super duper cool just from the thumbnail standpoint. His videos too, I actually find a lot of his gameplay videos really entertaining. He uses a lot of meme and fun stuff. It's really funny, but I also really I love his thumbnails. Super good. All right, next they each talk about their favorite mech just a little bit, and one of them just kind of talks about like a loadout that I was appreciative of, and that's kind of why I just thought it was a cool like discussion on this loadout, so I thought I'd just quickly touch on this one.
My fave is Orion with Gauss rifles. That's my top pick. I do like it. I know it's we all know what the meta is, and I'm sure it's like a little bit fallen apart from the meta, but I still do like it because, yeah, I did develop this content, but still, it's not the main reason why I like it. The thing is, we have more powerful weapons. Probably we even have more powerful mechs, and you can find a better combo. But what I do like about it is that how satisfactory it is to shoot with these rifles and hitting like every shot on any distance. That's a nice feeling.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I totally agree. When I first started using this weapon, as much as I felt like the sustained damage was just too long to realistically use long term, it is extremely, it's one of those like oddly satisfying weapons, right? Where you feel like at a lot of distances you can hit all your shots and it's just very effective. I really love the way that feels about the weapon, so props to you and your development for that one. But I wish it was a little more meta friendly. I will say that with the grade, I'm not the grade update, with the Gear Hub, as a new player in the earlier stages when you can get the Gauss rifle, it can be really fun there. It's just not one that lasts long term for a lot of people. So, it loses some points, but they do talk a little bit more about this weapon and further development of like another one, which will probably be like they say the new Gauss rifle. So we'll get to that. Because I love that they bring it back up again and that becomes a weapon that they talk about because I love that one. But next, we're just going to talk about some interesting development stuff related to Eclipse, just because when they were developing it, as we all know, some of the images of it made it seem like it was not just going to be a stealth mechanic like Shadow, that it actually looked like it was going to go invisible. So they actually talk about that, which I found very interesting. So let's play a clip of that. Oops.
That Eclipse mech, it should have had the different stealth mechanics. It should be like totally invisible for the players.
Yeah.
But when we presented this idea to developers, it turned out that there are some difficulties in its realization, and we could actually do it, but it would take more time than we had to develop this mech. And when you asked about the challenges, one of the challenges for me as a content game designer is to deliver content in time, because we're doing a lot of content recently, and sometimes we just don't have time to, like, I don't know, make something really deep, I don't know, and you have to cut some ideas. And this was one of the cases when we decided to cut this like full invisibility and change it with immune to status effects.
Yeah, that was a really interesting insight. I wish they could have gone a little bit more into like why they couldn't do it or why not stretch it out. I know that, however, in game development especially, you have a constricted schedule because a lot of things that you develop probably take like a 6-month window, I think they say, in terms of, the idea of prototyping to creation to development to testing to actually like implementation. All of that, for whatever you're working on, has a long cycle to it. So you don't want to get too far behind, knowing that you have all these other pieces of things that you're also trying to lay out at the same time. So I can absolutely understand the issue of development. I do think like the idea of full invisibility would be really cool for them to come back to in some fashion with the mech. I would love if we had a light mech that did something like that, just because light mechs in my mind have been really weak. So if we had a light mech that does have a limited energy capacity, has a really strong ability that will actually give good reason for people to fully max out light mechs in a way that actually feels strongly competitive for endgame. Just because I feel like that's lacking. But that would be an interesting thing. Like, if you guys come back to it, I would love to see it some in that fashion, like a new Shadow type mech that was still a light mech, but one that like actually went invisible. Would be really cool to see. All right. Moving right along here, the next one, they talk a little bit again about the grade update and changes, just because obviously for many of us, when the grade update happened, it sounded like it was going to be great, right? I felt like it was going to be great. And then when it actually came out, not so great, not great to a lot of people's expectations. It was a bit of a letdown. Now, we understand in a lot of ways why the game is moving this way or needs to move this way, but, it's been difficult. So I appreciate like their openness to talk about this. You know, so here's a clip of what they said related to that.
We do know that most of the updates, especially rebalance updates, they are not met like super warm.
Understatement, in my opinion.
We like should be honest with each other, because we as a game designers feel the same when we play the other games, and when the game that we're playing, like Nutmeg Arena, and they update something, it we're like, why the hell did you did the change to that character or to this thing?
Exactly.
So it's a common thing, so we just need to treat it like, and we understand it when we read in the comments, and that's so.
And
it's just
actually,
how life works in development.
The same works as our players when they ask why we not change something. The same works for us when we play other games. We see that something seems broken for us, and you know, but we see that they not fixing it, and we like, why? Just fix it. It's easy. Do that. Do this, and well, having our own. Like initially, this is our first reaction to such things, but when you start analyzing it and you know thinking,
you find the reasons.
You find the reason, and you actually understand from development side that sometimes it's just not really possible. They need to learn to do other things that have a bigger impact on players and experience.
It would break everything.
So okay, I cut it here just because I kind of rattle on a little bit. And I will say I understand what they're trying to say. I just wish, like, maybe there's an example that they could give us, right? Of something where you're saying, like, we thought it was broken, we heard what the community said, we tried to fix it, we analyzed the data and realized it would create this other problem, right? That's probably likely. I mean, if you ever develop something, or like especially with software development, when you want to make a change to something, it can break a lot of other stuff. We get that. But the idea of, how something should work, the way we want it to work, does that mean that something is way out of balance, or it's just like physically software not possible from a time standpoint of like all the bugs it would create? That's interesting to me. I wish we got a little bit more insight to that, but they probably can't overly explain how they analyze and their process and all that with this. I just wish it was a little bit more conclusive in that. But I at least appreciate that they understand how the players are feeling about that, just because sometimes it feels like they're entirely dismissive. So when you have at least a discussion like this, you can understand that they feel the same pain when they play other games, and even when they look at these issues themselves, until they actually have to analyze the data, and then maybe it turns out differently. I just wish we knew more about that process behind the scenes, because a lot of times it still just feels like, why did you do this? I'm sure they have their reasons. It's just, I'm not going to say much more than that. It's just frustrating sometimes that we can't see behind the scenes. But I understand why we can't. All right. Next, we're going to talk a little bit, or they talk a little bit about the new mode that they mentioned in the devlog, right? Where they have a PvE element coming into the game. Now, a lot of us have seen pictures of this when they were super early in development of it long ago, and they had concept art. I even showed some of it when I did the devlog review myself, and a lot of you have already seen the big boss mech and different kind of stuff like that. And they talk about how that may not necessarily be exactly what this is. So I thought it was really interesting in the way they described it, and wanted to talk a little bit more about it. So let's jump into that one.
Yeah, on the one hand, it could be like what you've mentioned, single boss, you and your teammates fighting against
mech,
it. And on the other hand, it could be just long levels with story and voiceovers and characters running around. In the first version, it would be neither of it. We are trying to make and try something in between, and we'll start with some. It will be something similar to puzzle-like experiences. Some from time to time we call it like a chess situation. If you try chess, you may know these training situations when you need to solve, you have certain amount of figures, and the opponent have another amount, and you just solve the single situation. That will be that is what we are trying to aim for.
All right, so I cut it there because he does talk a lot about like other possibilities of what this mode could be, and really it just sounds like it's still in early development phases and they're prototyping things. So we probably have a long way off until this mode would actually be a thing. I'm guessing at the very least 6 months. I would guess maybe even a year, right? Next anniversary is when we could expect something like this in my mind. But it's interesting to hear the way he talks about it, because obviously we know from the concept art that it's more like a boss mode or like waves to a boss in maybe like a co-op mode, but he's saying more of like, think of challenges. So if you've played other games where he used chess as an example, but like other games where they say like, you know, maybe a turn-based game or like a card game where they say you have a certain amount of turns to beat the enemy, or you have a certain amount of turns to do X or like achieve something. It sounds like that's a potential where they're going to put you in a specific scenario where you like have to overcome like an enemy or mech or something like that within specific parameters, almost like, you know, your achievements that you do in some degree. So that would be really interesting to see. To me, that almost sounds like one-off though. Like if you do those kind of things, that's cool and cool to achieve, but would probably have limited replay value. Whereas if there was like a co-op mode and there was a boss mode, you could add different bosses, you can make it more difficult, and at least it would have replayability with you and your friends, which would be kind of cool. I also love the idea of boss mode in the sense that, like, depending on the boss mechanics, some mechs that previously had not shined or weapons that had not shined might have a chance to really shine in these modes and be very effective. So I like the idea of that, but I also understand what he's trying to say. But obviously it's in prototyping phase, so there's a lot more to this mode. But it's interesting and exciting to hear them talk about it overall anyway. The last thing they kind of talked about in development that a lot of people have already kind of discussed was the idea of a new mech and a new weapon, all right? The new weapon sounds like it's going to be some new version of the Gauss rifle, and this new mech sounded really interesting too, so I wanted to hear what they said about it, and then we'll talk more about it here.
The mech would be a really interesting one, I guess. It would be the support mech with the new disable-like mechanics, which will be sleep, like a new status effect. It will be something similar to what stun does to enemies.
Okay.
But on contrast to stun, if you receive damage while you're asleep, you'll wake up and the effect breaks. Yeah, that's why in our idea was the support mech to support its team with disabling a couple of mechs on the battlefield. Should be pretty interesting.
Sounds interesting.
We also have some challenge with how bots should treat the mechs that are that fell asleep.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll find some good decisions for it. As for the weapon, this will be the new Gauss rifle type of a weapon. I mean, it would be the other weapon, but
it's already like familiar for players.
yeah, it would be familiar for those who play with Gauss rifle, and it will have a really interesting mechanics with a couple of status effects, let's say so.
No spoiler there.
Yeah, and we're even thinking of letting the players choose which status effects will be applied earlier or some things like that. So we'd really try to give them a choice somehow in these regards. So I think it should be a really interesting one.
Interesting. Yeah, I like the idea of both, I would say. I like the idea of having a new Gauss rifle that actually is maybe possibly going to be meta-worthy, whether that would be like an epic or a legendary. And also the idea of like maybe, I don't know how you would do that in your hangar or whatever, when you choose the weapon, what kind of status effect it would give. But that sounds really interesting. Like if you want to have one with overheat or you want to have one with stasis, you could set that up in your hangar beforehand. Sounds really kind of cool. Like I don't know exactly like how that works, and again, how you would necessarily make that function, because they've never put that kind of functionality in the game yet. But be interesting to see how that works. Now, as far as a mech goes, that one's really interesting too. It almost sounds like Zephyr 2.0, right? Like this is going to be the epic, or I mean, I'm sorry, the legendary version of Zephyr, and it's going to have a sleep mechanic that maybe is a little bit longer term, but can be canceled by the enemy in some fashion. Or it could be, yeah, it would be canceled by that, I don't know, it would be canceled in some way. That's the interesting thing, or more so canceled by your teammates, right? So like you could use it. I hope this is something that they've considered it to like last longer, because my issue with Zephyr is just with the sleep, or with the stun mechanic, is that now it's so short that you don't have time to get in the position you want to do side or back damage, so that Zephyr can actually make a kill, and instead he ends up leaving himself too open to be like counterattacked by the enemy. But if it's something that ends up longer, and in a one versus one situation, it's good. But if there are other teammates, they could screw up your strategy. You just it seems like you have to have good team like coordination for it. I like the idea of that. Makes me wonder though, like, can the enemy teammate have friendly fire, and will that considered like a wake up from the sleep mechanic? It sounds like it wouldn't, because damage would be the factor to change that. But it is interesting to hear the idea of what they're doing here. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought that was really cool. I like the stuff that they talked about in this video. I will say, like, you know, these kind of things, these dev talks, are something that I really hope they do more of. I hope you guys feel the same. You know, some things are a little more candid and open to talk about. Some things give us like spoiler and insight for stuff that's coming up that, you know, would similar to what's talked in the dev vlogs, but it's different. And I like the feel of this being more open in discussion and stuff like that. Very, very cool. So one thing though I wanted to talk about, it wasn't related to that specifically, but when he talked about the great update, and a lot of us have been talking about the implant discount issue. And I actually, in a previous video, when I talked about the dev vlog, I really hammered them on this thing. Now, I know a lot of people hearing this said, like, I want to either quit, or I'm going to take a break, or some of them have just been talking about some form of like boycotting. I know I've also said before, if you're not happy with things, don't spend. So I support when people want to do something like that. But I will say, like, from myself, I want to talk about two different things connected here that I've started to realize is a possibility more so than before, that I think is important for us to consider. All right. Now, I've been playing the Gear Hub, which obviously a lot of us are excited about, but I've been playing it for about 3 months, maybe just shy of 3 months, but about that long. And in that time, if you guys have been following along with my free-to-play series, I've gotten a pretty decent hanger. A lot of you have noted how, like, you have better stuff than I've had in a while, Scape. Like, I've been playing longer than you with my main account, and I don't even have this stuff. And that's not because I'm amazing or anything crazy like that, but the way the Gear Hub is set up, it's to give you good lateral progression, better than what we've had before, because it is so vastly different from the progress path and what we've had for all this time. Mainly because we've had a gap of time having nothing different than the progress path. But now that we'll have this, I think that a lot of people are going to be able to progress and move up faster and better than they did before. But if you think about it, what I've done so far with my free-to-play account, I haven't spent a dime on, right? It's free to play. That's the whole point of it. But because it's free to play and I've done so well with it, I actually think probably in about 6 months-ish time, I'll be in the last couple of tiers and like getting or working on getting legendary stuff. Now, to have only in 6 months completely free to play to be able to get end game stuff is way faster than what we've been able to do before, right? So in that regard, I do think that there's a difference of how they change other aspects of the game to make sure that they are still profitable. You have to remember that this is a business, all right? They still need to be able to make money, and let's be honest, they deserve to. Anyone who makes a game or makes a product that all these people are playing or connected to, I think that there should be some element of money transaction that happens. Obviously, you don't pay nothing for your food. You don't pay nothing for other stuff. So there should be a paid element to this game. It's just very different because this is how the market works. So it feels like the function of it is very different. I get all that, but you know, you have to realize something has to give, all right? And right now it has been the implant system. Now, I don't like the way they've done it. I don't love the implant system, period. Frankly, I think it's unintuitive. I think it's different than other games, and it's very weird to me. I've never really liked the system that they've had, period. But I can understand to a degree that they're trying to find different ways to make money in lieu of the probably potential loss in profits that they would have from the Gear Hub. All right. A lot of you will say it's greedy. I don't really know. I don't know how much money they're actually making. It's hard for me to know the actual numbers and the data. But it's not like they're making huge bank versus their other game, Raid Shadow Legends, which makes way more money than this one. But my point in saying all that is I think that there's a balance that they're trying to do here. And I actually think, kind of in a bold move, they've said this even to their customer service and support section, because some people have already asked about this. Why are you guys doing this implant discount, all this other kind of stuff? And they have made some responses that I've heard other people, they've sent the responses to me, where they basically say that as the Gear Hub is coming up, we are trying to make it easier for newer players or those who are free to play catch up to endgame, catch up to the higher paying players, while at the same time slowly, not like stopping, but kind of slowing down or maybe discouraging some of the top players so that we start to see less of a gap between the two. All right. Now, this is a bold move, I gotta say, because a lot of people who are paying players obviously don't like this change, and I understand why. And I completely agree in that sense. But I also understand that they need to still find a way to make money. They need to find a way to close that gap, and they need a way for matchmaking to be better at high end. If you're a high end player, you know that you probably hit a lot more bots than you actually do players. It's a big pain. When you're mid game, you hit more players. So I'm hoping that with these kind of changes that we'll see people matching up better together. And I hope that as we get closer to doing that, they find better and other ways to actually make money than this implant system. Obviously, they've done the implant discount before, so my hope is that like after this kind of stuff happens, they can find other ways to make revenue and bring the discount back, and hopefully maybe someday completely change the implant system, because like I said, I don't like it and it's not intuitive. But I just wanted to say that because as much as I hate the change to the implant system like the rest of you do, I'm trying to like think about or understand why they're doing it from a business perspective, from the overall game balance, and from like the difference of the player base right now to try and match everybody up. And I do think having the Gear Hub earlier, in my sense, on a free-to-play account has given me a little bit of a unique view than some other people. So I thought it was fair to share that. I still feel a lot of the same ways I did before about it, but, you know, I felt like saying that. As the dust has settled a little more, I thought about it a little differently. But I still hope it changes, like many of you. But you guys can let me know your thoughts about that, about this video, the dev talk, and any other thing that you want to comment about the game, what you hate, what you like. Always love hearing your comments. And as always, we will see you out there on the battlefield.